Welcome in to another edition of Bet. I'm Anita Marks. He is Eric Moody. We are with you today. And Eric, let's dive right into the big news yesterday. Deshaun Watson, as we know, now suspended 11 games. The NFL and the NFLPA agreed to that. And the odds now have changed for the Cleveland Browns in a plethora of ways. In regard to winning the AFC 16-1, the division plus 450 was 3-1. Will they win over under 8.5 games? Will they make it to the playoffs? Yes. Now is plus 145. No is minus 170. So a lot has changed on the board because of this agreement in the decision. So let's hear from you, Eric. Any plays here, considering we know that for sure Deshaun Watson is not going to play for the first 11 games?
You know what? Looking at this situation, it's just really, really, really dire. So you got Watson that's out for 11 games. And so the only bet that I would consider taking with the Browns is the total. 8.5 wins. I would consider taking the under because they're going to have a tough schedule. They're in a tough division. You got the Cincinnati Bengals, Baltimore Ravens, the Pittsburgh Steelers that are there. And Jacoby Brissett, I'm like, he's no Deshaun Watson. Watson obviously averaged 269 passing yards, 31 rushing yards, and 2.2 touchdowns per game with Houston. Plus, once he comes back, it is going to take him some time to get reacclimated. And plus, their schedule down the stretch is not doing them any favors. So I would consider the under here.
Yeah, so I'm not going to have a play on any of the futures bets because here's the thing, Eric. It could be more than 11 games, and follow me here because part of this decision is that Deshaun Watson is going to have to comply with a professional evaluation and treatment plan, and that third-party behavioral specialist can make a decision whether or not they can extend more than 11 games if, of course, Deshaun Watson doesn't show remorse or even claim innocence. And, of course, we heard him speak to the media yesterday, and, he still is seeing himself as somebody who's not guilty, and he can't wait to tell his quote-unquote side of the story. So, for me, jury's still out here. On top of that, we don't know, is it going to be Jacoby Brissett who's going to be quarterbacking this team for the first 11 weeks? Are they kicking the can around right now to reach out to the 49ers and bring in Jimmy Garoppolo? So in regards to the futures bet, I'm going to take a step back. I'm not going to jump on anything here, but I will tell you what I do like. And that is week 1 of the regular season, Eric, and that's the Panthers. And they are favorites going up against the Browns. And how could you not like the Carolina Panthers right now? All the reasons that I just shared with you as to my apprehension with the Cleveland Browns, but yet the Carolina Panthers, we're hearing Baker Mayfield now has performed so well that he has already won the job, even though it has not officially been announced from Carolina. He's got a home game. The crowd is going to be pumped. Going up against his former team, he's going to want to take it to the Cleveland Browns. You look at the plethora of weapons he's going to be working with C-Mac in the backfield. I think folks are sleeping on DJ Moore. I love him as a wide receiver this season, especially I want him on my fantasy team. Robbie Anderson stretching the field. Not to mention an improved offensive line and an improved not only in the draft but in free agency. And here's another thing, Eric. I think people are sleeping on this defense. This is a Carolina Panthers team. They have invested in a lot of rookie defensive players the last few years. This is their year to shine. So I think a lot of people are underestimating that Carolina Panthers defense. So for me, it's Carolina in week 1. Any thoughts on that analysis?
I was sitting here smiling because it's a lot of what you said that I agree with, especially in week 1, Baker going up against his former team. And DJ Moore is criminally underrated from a betting lens and also in fantasy. And so, no, I do like that pick. But just from the futures market, I would consider taking the under because I just don't see this Browns team. It's going to be tough for them to win even 6 or 7 games, in my opinion. So.
All right, we go from the gridiron to the octagon. We've got UFC 278 coming our way this Saturday. Let's take a look.
Anybody in that welterweight division that think they want this, you know you don't, because I'm a problem.
I'm a dying breed.
Kamaru Usman is the welterweight champ. He has run through one of the UFC's deepest divisions.
A man that seems unbeatable.
Leon Edwards, he's an absolute sniper on the feet.
I mean, Usman needs someone new.
Here's the question. Who's next?
Leon
Edwards?
Yeah, go.
One of the very best fighters in the world at present.
fight in the world.
Take you what from who?
My goodness.
Just a cannon straight down the middle. Oh! Kamaru Usman still undisputed. Oh my goodness!
Dying breed.
So we welcome in Ian Parker from Salt Lake City, home of UFC 278. In the main card, we've got Usman going against Edwards. Now, these two dudes haven't fought against each other since 2015. We're talking about 6 years. But since then, man, these fighters, it's time to get back at it. Considering that they haven't seen each other in that long, how are you playing this fight?
You know what? Since then, Kamaru Usman has gone on an unbelievable run. The UFC champ, he's creeping up on George St. Pierre to become the possible GOAT of the division, pound for pound best. And then you got Leon Edwards, who just has not lost. You know, the pandemic really put him back. He should have fought for this title a few years ago, but he's here to do it. And for this fight, personally, I like over 4.5 rounds. Both guys very durable. You know, this is going to be Kamaru Usman deciding, should I stand up with a guy who's got good kickboxing, or should I really lean on the wrestling? And I think he's going to lean on the wrestling. And Edwards has never been finished, so I think over 4.5 rounds is the way to play this one.
As we know, the first one went the distance. Right now, Usman favored by 360. That's a lot of juice, but you could get him going the distance again at minus 125. Any of those are enticing to you?
Yeah, Usman by decision, I think, is the way to go here. You know, his striking has improved tremendously since the last time they fought. He started off as just a wrestler, a grinder. Now his striking is being used to make his wrestling that much more dominant. So if you are going to pick a side and not go the over or go the distance, I think Kamaru Usman at that number by decision is an absolute steal.
All right, so the co-main, you know, not a title fight, but Luke Rockhold. He's returning, but hasn't fought in 3 years. I mean, you've got Paulo Costa in the middleweight bout. Costa, 2-fight losing streak. Not great, obviously. Rockhold hasn't been in the octagon in quite a while. What's your play here?
You know what? Rockhold hasn't fought in 3 years, and it's just not the same Luke Rockhold that we once saw, that dominant champ, that young gun that just came in guns a-blazing. He's just not the same guy, and he's fighting someone in Paulo Costa who's got great takedown defense, tremendous power, good cardio, and if Luke can't get this fight to the floor, his chin continues to fail him, so I'm going to play this at Paulo Costa to win by TKO or KO. I think he gets it done probably late second, early third. It's just that power and athleticism I think is going to be too much for Luke, and I think Luke is kind of 1 foot out the door here, so let's go with Costa by TKO or KO.
Love it, because again, as the same, you know, we're talking about the first fight, just too much juice. Minus 400 for Costa, so love it. Ian Parker, thank you so much for joining us here on Bet, giving us all the great scoop on how to wager on the UFC fight later on Saturday. All right, so we jump back from the octagon, back into the gridiron, because we've got some great games on tap for tonight.
Yes, we do.
Eric, Moody, Anita, Marks. And let's start first and foremost with Carolina going up against New England. The Patriots now favored by 60, over-unders at 39.5. Eric, what's your play tonight?
Yeah, I'm really liking this game for Carolina to end up covering here. I think what's really interesting is that we'll say they had a quite chippy week of practice, earlier this week, and so I do see some of that translating over into the field in this game. So we didn't have a chance to see Mac Jones last week. I do see that changing, obviously, in this preseason game, so we'll be able to get some series and some drives in there. I guess as far as with the Panthers, we know that Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold are not playing, but I still see the Panthers and the Patriots still going all out. So I do like Carolina to cover here. Now, you look at Carolina in this matchup, and then with the Patriots. So I think this could be a very intriguing matchup. Also, kind of like the over on this as well. But I'll pass it back to you, Anita, just to get some thoughts.
Well, I'm on the opposite side. So as I always like to say, whether it's Aaron or Tyler, maybe a little bottle of wine in my future. I'm all over the Patriots. Listen, what we're hearing from Carolina is that Baker Mayfield's already solidified the job. Reports are we're not going to see Baker. We're not going to see Sam Darnold play. What does that mean? P.J. Walker, Matt Corral, who actually was no bueno, not good in week 1. 1 for 9, 11 yards. I believe he had a fumble. Meanwhile, for the Patriots, Brian Hoyer, I think we're going to get a good dose of him. He's been in the system for quite a while. He knows it extremely well. And boy, Bailey Zappi, dude that the Patriots drafted from Western Kentucky. This guy, he broke all the records in college football. Looked good last week, and I think we're going to get another heavy dose of him. So I really like the Patriots tonight. Before we break down the New Orleans Saints Green Bay Packers game, let's check in with Rob Domowski. He does a phenomenal job covering the Packers and some interesting news coming out of their camp this week. Let's listen in.
Thanks, Anita. Aaron Rodgers isn't playing tonight against the Saints, but you can bet he'll be watching the receivers closely. It was a rocky week for the young pass catchers who took a public criticism from the quarterback for what he said were repeated mistakes, bad drops, and bad routes. What followed was a meeting the next day between the quarterbacks and the receivers and all the offensive coaches to get on the same page. Rookie Romeo Doubs, who had a touchdown catch last week against the 49ers, but also had 2 drops, one of which resulted in an interception, said Rodgers just wants us to see what he sees, so that way we'll be able to react and play faster. Fellow rookie Samori Toure said Rodgers just wants to let them know that there's a super high standard for receivers in Green Bay, and quote, it's about us carrying the standard. Now those young receivers will get plenty of chances tonight because veterans Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, and Sammy Watkins aren't likely to play.
All right, Rob, thank you so much. So, Eric, interesting words from Aaron Rodgers. This is a wide receiving core, man. They need to step up tonight. How are you playing this one? You've got Green Bay favored by 3. The over-under's at 38.5.
Yeah, I actually prefer the Saints here. So I'm excited about this Saints team this season. They got Jameis Winston under center, a lot of new faces on both sides of the football. So it shouldn't come as a surprise that we're not going to have Winston playing tonight just with his injury history. But I think during the regular season, I'm like, this is going to be a Saints team that's really exciting to watch. He had a lot of success throwing the ball with the Buccaneers, averaged 274 passing yards per game. Now, one thing with the Saints and Dennis Allen, I think he can orchestrate a game plan to create turnovers and to limit Green Bay's chances to score. Like, he's a defensive mastermind, in my opinion, so I expect him to put a lot of pressure on Jordan Love in Green Bay's quarterback room. In addition, Jordan Love had a 3-interception game against a team last week with nowhere near the talent of this Saints defense. And so I think it's unclear on who will suit up on defense for New Orleans, but I think they'll have enough defensive playmakers to really make life difficult. Plus, they got Andy Dalton that's their veteran name, so I really like the Saints to cover here 2.5.
Yeah, so I'm not on a side, but I like the over here tonight, and you hit on it. Listen, no Jameis Winston, but Andy Dalton, as my mom likes to say, he's not chopped liver. 5 for 5, 51 yards and a touchdown last week. I think the very few who actually believe that Andy Dalton could be a solid quarterback in the NFL. So like the fact that we're going to get a heavy dose of Andy Dalton. And Jordan Love, listen, drafted in the first round. Dude's got a ball. This is his opportunity. Everything that I'm hearing and I'm reading is that we're going to see him play for about 3 quarters. So with those 2 quarterbacks and wide receivers that now have been put on notice, and they need to step up tonight, I like the over here. One more game I want to throw your way, and that's Houston going up against the Rams. Houston favored by 2. Over-unders at 37.5. What is your play, Eric Moody?
Yeah, with this game, I do like the Rams at plus 2.5 to cover. One thing with the Texans, I'm like, you would think that they would have an advantage in this game because they're playing a high number of their starters, and the Rams won't. Although, it's unclear at this point, like how many drives Houston starters will play. But I think I'll go as far as to say a 0% chance, that Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald will play in this game. But even with their backups, I've got to admit, the Rams did look pretty good in their preseason opener. Now, there were 5 games last week decided by 3 or fewer points during the first week of preseason. But just given the circumstances and the situation, I really like the Rams at plus 2.5.
Oh, wow. Okay, so yet again, I'm on the opposite side, and I like the Texans here. Another guy that I actually like is Davis Mills. He impressed me last year. Wasn't really expecting much, and now everything I hear is that we're going to get a heavier dose of him later on tonight. Driscoll came in last week as well. He threw for 165 yards and 2 touchdowns. Meanwhile, for the Rams, obviously we're not going to see Stafford. Cooper Kupp's not going to play. Aaron's not going to play. And their defense didn't look that great last week. So I actually, I'm going to play the Texans here, and I will lay the points. Eric, before we sign off for the day, I want to talk about this week what's going on with the Tampa Bay Bucs, right? And let's just rewind before we fast forward. And last week we heard that Tom Brady was going to step away from the team, and he was supposed to rejoin the team after this preseason game where the Bucs are going to take on Tennessee. Well, new head coach Todd Bowles spoke to the media earlier this week, and now he's walking that back. Apparently, there's no timetable now for Tom Brady to return to camp. And so I've got some big questions here. And also, I was already fading the Bucs even before this happened. There's a few plays out here that I like, but I'll go right to them, right? Like, number one, I like the Saints coming in anyway. I like this even before this was happening. I think the Saints, they dominated the Bucs the last 2 seasons. I think they'll continue to do that. And just the mere fact that Tom Brady is not going to be playing behind a solid offensive line like he has the last year with this Bucs team, I think that there's some really big concerns here, especially with Ryan Jensen being out. So I love the Saints to win the division. I am fading all things Tom Brady. I'm fading all things Bucs this season. Do you have any plays considering this new news out of Tampa Bay?
Yeah, I must admit, as a Saints fan, I do like the over on the team total, but just given what's going on with Brady right now, I'm like, he's got so much experience. Once he comes back, it's going to be like he hadn't missed a snap. Now, I don't have as many concerns about the offensive line as you do. I'm like, with the offensive line, I do believe that they can fill that void and make sure that there aren't any protection issues. So I actually still like the Bucs for over 11.5 wins. You look at that division and the competition, the Saints are their only legitimate competition, but you got Carolina that feels like they're constantly rebuilding. And you've got Atlanta, and we won't even get started on how dire the situation is in Atlanta right now. So I do like the Bucs over 11.5 games.
So again, just to recap, I like the division straight up where the Saints are 1, the Bucs are 2 at 4-1, and I also like the Bucs under 4.5 wins in their division at -130. Before we go, I know there's some weekend, some Saturday, Sunday games out there. From what I understand, you are on one of them. What's your favorite Saturday or Sunday play, Eric?
Yeah, I would say my favorite play on Saturday is the Lions, who are going up against the Colts. So I do like the Lions at -3. Now, one thing with the Colts during the preseason, they do have a history of taking a very, very conservative approach. And so I think they'll limit, their starters' playing time significantly. And I think this is something that the Lions can capitalize on. This is a team that's rebuilding. Got really good momentum, and I think they want to translate that momentum into the regular season. So I do like the Lions with spread for that preseason game at -3 points.
Fantastic, Eric. That completes our show. We've got some NFL futures plays. We've got a ton of Friday night games for you, some weekend games, some Octagon. I think we've really checked a lot of the boxes. Eric, great doing the show with you. Thank you so much, my friend. Have a great weekend. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to Bet.